How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to LOOTastic. Let's get right into today's legendary video. Now today's a weird one. I've got this idea for this video, but not quite sure how I'm going to word everything, so let's just see how it goes. Now if you were here before I changed the channel over to LOOTastic, you know that I used to cover No Man's Sky. I did daily videos basically for 3 years, and I wholeheartedly love the game, love the team behind it. Now what does this have to do with loot? Well, I think I finally found the real reason I was addicted to No Man's Sky so much, even when the game had trouble when it launched way back in 2016. Turns out, loot-based games and No Man's Sky have something in common. The way they keep me hooked is exactly the same, so let's talk about it. First, here's some backstory for you. Way back in 2013, when No Man's Sky was first announced, I was still living with my parents, still in high school. I was sitting on the floor of the living room watching the VGX Awards, watching what I would come to know as the reveal trailer for No Man's Sky. Like many others, I was blown away. I wanted an exploration game, a game where you could find things nobody else had ever seen, planets no one else had ever been to. That's what I wanted for No Man's Sky, and 3 years later, they delivered that. All the extra stuff they've added since then has been great, and the next update put the game back on the map as the concurrent players hit AAA numbers again. I liked to explore. Most of the other stuff was less important to me. Anything that added to the variation of creatures, planets, artifacts, I was all for because it added to the exploration side of the game. Most of my game time was just planet hopping, walking around planets and caves, taking screenshots, scanning creatures, collecting artifacts. That's it. The procedural generation in No Man's Sky meant that everything I found hadn't been seen before by someone else. It made my time playing unique. There was always the possibility of finding something no one has ever seen before. That's what kept me and many others going. The anticipation of finding that next big discovery. Anticipation is the key word here. Anticipation is the main reason why people, including myself, are so addicted to loot in games. Have you ever heard of Skinner's box, made famous by American psychologist B.F. Skinner? Basically, he essentially proved that he could place an animal in a box and make it do specific actions if it was given a reward after, like a rat pulling a lever when it sees a light, then getting a treat. This is also known as operant conditioning. After a while, this operant conditioning creates what psychologists call a compulsion loop. While playing a loot game, you see a queue in the form of a high-level enemy. You attack it because you know you'll get a reward. That reward reinforces that loop as you start to search for more queues, to kill more enemies, to get more rewards, and on and on and on. When you find an unanticipated rare piece of loot in a vase or in a barrel, your brain remembers that. So what do? You break every vase, bookshelf, and barrel you can find because that was the queue and you got a reward, even though it's rare. That unexpectedness fueled the fire, if you will. Your brain knows it's possible, and the anticipation grows. In your brain, there's a cell type called a dopamine neuron. Now, trust me, I'm getting somewhere with this. Just hold on a second. This dopamine neuron monitors the level of dopamine released in your brain to predict and regulate how to get more of a good thing. Dopamine is a chemical that is released when something good happens or you get pleasure from something, like getting a super rare drop. When we get something that wasn't anticipated, like a good item from a vase, our brains try to calculate what it missed. Why we got something that time, from that vase, but none of the others. What weapons were we using when it happened? What time of day was it? What did I do differently to cause this outcome? That's what your brain is doing anytime you find something good, trying to find out why. Now your brain is paying even more attention to that next big surprise loot drop. Even though the drops are random, and have nothing to do with anything you can control, the dopamine neuron still attempts to predict that next loot drop and how to go about acquiring it. So what does any of this have to do with No Man's Sky? Well, it all relates. Why did I have the drive to explore constantly trying to find something super rare, something no one has ever seen before? Dopamine, the anticipation, Skinner's box, it's all here too. Skinner's box in No Man's Sky is the universe. Going to a new planet is the queue. If I go to a new planet and I have a chance to find a cool new biome, crazy weather, weird creatures, something completely new, that's the reward. When that happens, when I find something crazily unique, I ask, why? Why is this here? I start drawing conclusions. Well, I'm in this kind of system with this kind of alien race, in this quadrant with this type of biome. That must be why. Even though it's all procedurally generated, and I know this, but my dopamine neurons tried to predict it anyway. Unanticipated rewards are here too. About 2 years ago, I found a system with one planet in it, and instead of skipping over it to save hyperdrive fuel, I decided why not, even though usually I pass over them to find systems with more planets, because theoretically more planets means more chances of something new or rare. Not this time though. I went to that one planet and found Diplos, which are the most sought after creature in No Man's Sky, for my first time ever. So naturally, what did I do? I started going to every single planet system, hoping that would eventually trigger again, even though I know that's not how it works. The reason I was hooked on No Man's Sky is the same reason I get hooked on loot games. Crazy. All in all, this is just a really interesting topic that I thought would be cool to talk about. I hope you learned something. If you want to read up more on this whole psychology aspect on loot, I'll leave a link in the description to a fantastic article that explains a lot of this way better than I can and goes into a lot more detail. As always, this video was brought to you by LOOTastic, where you get all the legendary loot news and info free of charge, no grind or limbs required. Like the video for a pet that picks up gold for you and subscribe for 1,000 breakable vases. Until next time, happy looting.